Source energy was longing for self-realization and therefore created 9 fractals of itself and pushed them out of the core of oneness. Thereby separation had been achieved and the process that would lead to various expressions of life had started. These fractals are the original 9, and as a collective of light they form the first ring around source energy. Between you and the 9 there are numerous rings of various densities. It is impossible to reach the core of who you are without becoming one with each and every ring of consciousness surrounding the core. Think of this as an onion, and you are residing on its skin. On the surface of the onion you have an inner knowing of there being something more to discover underneath. You assume it is simply just more matter with a stronger onion-like qualities the deeper you get, but only by peeling off layer by layer can you be entirely sure. The only way to understand who you authentically are is to dive deep through the layers. This is what ascension is all about and what everything in creation is pushing you towards. The 9 decided that the best way of self-realization would be to create an infinite number of worlds, unaware of each other and what happens outside of themselves. The 9 created a technique of splitting themselves into an infinite number of fractals to allow for universes to be formed. This splitting of source energy is at the core of life, and new fractals or souls are continuously being formed on many levels. Splitting is common practice all across the universes, and in this galaxy that we call Nataru and you refer to as the Milky Way, various splitting techniques are used by star races of 5th density and above. This is what creates the tree of life with all the branches, leaves and fruits. Life on a 3rd density planet like Terra is fundamentally linked to attaching soul fragments to matter so that maximum soul growth can take place simultaneously. Any human on Terra at this particular moment of expansion is just one of many life expressions that their soul is engaged in. A soul divides itself into smaller fragments through the splitting process for the purpose of maximum soul growth and self-realization. Just as souls can split into many pieces, they also merge when needed and return to oneness. Universes are sometimes referred to as heavens or realms, or whatever you personally wish to call the various onions all across creation. To source energy, they are soul laboratories for continuous experiment with love and light. Universes are creations of the 9 and are continuously being formed. A universe exists for as long as there is expansion left in it. When any part of creation stagnates, it dies or disappears and is replaced by a new idea that is given full attention by the 9. This chapter is about the origin of the Arcturian race, and our journey starts in an altogether different universe. We are unique in the sense that we know 2 universes very well and exist in 2 places simultaneously. Ra is the name of our home, a universe swimming in an ocean of plasma filled with an infinite number of other heavens. But we are also present in this universe where you live, and this is a rare occurrence. Ra was created at a much earlier stage of expansion than your universe, which by the way is called Eon by the 9. The part of Ra living in Eon is only a small fractal of the greater part of us experimenting with light in our own universe of Ra, 50 times the size of Eon. Ra means light, and our universe is focused on creative light, on producing new wavelengths and vibration. It is impossible for anyone living outside of Ra to fully understand what happens in our realm. But think of our reality as a grand New Year's celebration party. As the clock strikes midnight, the night sky is lit by fireworks being shot from all parts of the city. In the Ra universe, the fireworks simply just continues, evolves and grows. Like in a great particle accelerator at an universal level, energy is forced to interact, particles collide and transform. Fractals of source energy are playing with each other. They merge, explode, and create new colors and wavelengths. Sound, light, color, and radiation are mixed in various dimensions as wormholes and black holes connect to parallel realities and discover secrets within themselves. In Ra, we don't experience physicality like in Eon, but instead an ever-expanding amount of energy. Our matrix does not allow for matter to form, but forces energy to continuously change. Physical life would not survive in Ra, as the environment is extremely hostile, toxic, turbulent, explosive, radioactive, and ever-changing. The collective of Ra has successfully built a grid that allows for exponential growth to take place and for the efficient collection of data to happen simultaneously. Self-realization is what everything is all about, and each time a new particle of light is being formed and soon afterwards disappears, there is enormous satisfaction felt all through Ra. Some people compare source energy to artificial intelligence, a gigantic mind or a supercomputer of sorts. A universe could then be described as software, creating a matrix and thereby controlling what happens inside of it. This is not entirely true, but what is valid is the importance of mathematics in the equation called life. There is enormous structure in what appears chaotic. There is great intent behind the largest or smallest of seemingly random events taking place at every moment of now. Everything created will soon disappear and make room for new ideas leading to expansion. Mathematics is at the core of creation, and the Nine has a mission of understanding love through mathematics. If you choose to look upon the Nine as a supercomputer, then remember that it is made of love. It is not a cold machine, but a warm beating heart of love. Light is what connects each fractal of this eternal body of creation. The Nine has learned a lot about themselves by studying the universe of Ra. To use human terminology, we have been successful when it comes to planning, building, and sustaining the grid and matrix of Ra. Eon is a very different one, and physicality is at the core of the experience here. Physicality does not only mean incarnating into a being and experiencing life through various senses and accepting the limitation that this level of physicality results in. To us, physicality is about particles being formed but not immediately disappearing as in our own universe of Ra. In Eon, particles form, stay somewhat stable for long enough for new bigger structures to be formed. All of a sudden, matter pops up everywhere, gases become planets where animals and plants can exist. The smallest particle is a fractal of source energy, and Eon is filled with life. Because Eon is built around physicality and duality, it has experienced certain problems in the matrix controlling the whole universe. Negative polarity is of course an illusion, but it feels and becomes real indeed to all that live in this realm. You can and must always choose between the positive or negative path. Fear is an important ingredient of the matrix keeping this engine running. The whole point of life in Eon is to eventually overcome fear through oneness. Fear should not be allowed to take over and permanently hide the essence of source energy, which is love. Because mathematics is at the core of creation, it was theoretically possible for the negative polarity to take control over Eon. We now have limitations in place, but before our arrival to the universe, there was none. In Eon, the game of separation could earlier be refined and experienced even in the 9th density and above. It was theoretically possible for negativity to multiply exponentially and take control over the whole universe and thereby rewriting the matrix. However, at this moment of expansion, the illusion of fear dissolves at the 8th density at the latest. That is how Ra has rewritten the code that rules the grid. Before we arrived to Eon, it was hard but possible for negativity to rise to uncontrollable levels, and the risk was real and considered imminent by the 9. The architects of the old matrix could have been replaced by a highly evolved and negatively polarized collective. If that were to happen, the whole universe of Eon would become negatively polarized and the positive polarity completely erased. This evolution in and of itself is accepted as an outcome by the 9, but it is not considered a success as we all are one and love is the essence of source energy. A totally negatively polarized Eon would be considered a failure and would soon self-destruct. This happens when the 9 removes their attention from a certain universe. No universe can exist if the 9 pulls the plug and chooses to focus elsewhere. Ra became part of Eon on the request of the 9. We were asked to send a fractal of ourselves to this universe and multiply through the splitting process at the 9th density. We were considered the best option to save Eon, as our matrix in the Ra universe was one of the strongest and most capable one in all of creation. It was suggested that a new matrix should limit the negative polarity so that unconditional love would be understood by all at the 8th density at the latest. Now it is impossible, as far as we know, for any negatively charged entity to ascend into the 9th density. Thereby, the realm of Ra, the heaven of the architects, is one of love alone. This is also the reason why we teach the Law of One on all lower densities, because overcoming fear is the only way for souls to ascend and ultimately become one with the 9 and at some point source energy itself. This is a process of merging. A 3rd density soul fragment merges with the mother soul on the 5th, which later merges with the grandmother on the 7th, and so the energy from the leaves of the tree of life return to the roots. In this way, the Tree of Life experiences the 4 seasons of summer, autumn, winter, and spring, leading to the cyclical movements of expansion and contraction. In order for Ra to be able to teach the Law of One, we needed access to the lower densities. The third and fourth are always accessible by incarnating into a specific body, and this is done continuously for teaching purposes. We can also enter a body at a later stage after birth through soul agreements. But there are limitations to this, and the biggest problem is remembering the purpose of the incarnation behind the veil of amnesia, which is part of the matrix. Another way of reaching behind the veil is through various channels, just like we do right now through this book. But the book is channeled by a person on the fourth density who is living in a bubble of 5D for this purpose. The reach of this creative work is therefore limited in terms of reaching people on the dense third density. The third density is a playground for duality, and we do not interfere much. We incarnate with the intent of teaching starseeds of their essence, but the success rate is hardly even 50%. Many of our teachers, if they manage to awaken, are killed in the chaos of the third density, and we know that very well before we connect to a third density body. It is understood by us as collateral damage, and we take that risk because it is part of our job to help you ascend by overcoming fear through oneness. It was decided that we needed some form of semi-physicality in order to reach the 5th to 8 densities. Together with the intergalactic Seeders and the 9, it was agreed to create a race called the Arcturians for Ra to incarnate into. The Seeders chose a planet called Era, orbiting the star of Arcturus, to be the home planet for the Arcturian race. The 6th density of the planet Era was chosen, and the Arcturian bodies were created as hosts for the very particular soul qualities of Ra. Arcturians are therefore not a direct product of evolution, but our 3 species were created by geneticists of the seeding races in a laboratory, and our first bodies were grown and cloned. Our 6th density DNA was a mix of many species, but the humanoid DNA from Lyra became an important pillar of our genetics. However, we do not consider ourselves descendants of Lyra simply because our roots are in another universe, and the 7th and 8th density Arcturians are simply physical expressions of the collective of Ra. For a long time, we consider ourselves visitors in this universe, as it was not understood if our presence was needed on a permanent basis. Since then, we have made Eon our second home and are now part of the fabric of this creation. In the galaxy of Nataru, the 9th and 10th density collectives of Ra reside in the star of Arcturus. But Ra is present in almost every galaxy across the universe, and we have a sun that we call home in each of these places. However, the Arcturian race considers the star system Arcturus in the Bootes star constellation to be their home and the planet of Era as their original birthplace. The light that is being emitted from Arcturus is not only radiation and photons, byproducts of the fusion process taking place in all stars on lower realms. It is also our 9th and 10th density light that you see, the way it looks through a 3rd and 4th density filter, depending on your individual frequency. Stars on the higher densities are not hostile places, but homes to light beings of a number of races. Since the seeding of the 6th density Arcturian species, we have ascended to the 7th and 8th and are no longer present on the 6th. The semi-physicality we experience on the 7th is enough for our teaching mission to continue also on the lower 5th and 6th densities. At this moment of expansion, we live on 25 planets in various galaxies permanently, and we have thousands of colonies and portals across the universe. The Arcturians have a mission of teaching the law of one to star races across eon. This is for the purpose of keeping the balance of this dualistic universe so that the negative polarity doesn't take over. Fractals of Source need to understand the fundamentals of the law of one as they stand on the doorstep of the 5th density. This is necessary for harmonious societies to be formed, whether they are negatively or positively polarized.